right, welcome to No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. I'm your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz.
That would be me.
That is you.
I tell you what, this is one of those days when in North Dakota, as a girl, you really need a ponytail because it was gale force winds today. It was freezing for a reason day today, and I was out in the wind and did 3.5 hours outside today. And there was a reason for that, but it was
a lot of wind.
It was so windy and so chilly. So good to be indoors. Nice thing here. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about my first topic tonight is about the Democrats and how they are having not so good weeks, one after another. You may recall when Glenn Youngkin got elected, that was a kind of a bad week for the Democrats because that was a complete flip. They managed to take their House of Delegates in Virginia as well. And so that was a bad thing. Well, as time has gone on, Rick, things have been piling on, and it's not getting any better for the Democrats leading up to the midterms. I will say this, what we need to do as Republicans is not stop the freight train. Let's just not put on the brakes.
Don't get in our own way.
No, please try not to get in your own way. So first of all, I found a Western Journal article that piqued my interest. The article was titled, "Texas State Representative Deals Blow to Democrats, Switches to GOP. The values of those in D.C. are not our values." That is the title of the article. Let's take a little look at some of the quotes from this. Texas State Representative Ryan Gillen is sending shockwaves through Texas politics as he has announced his decision to switch from the Democratic Party to the GOP this week. Gillen's district, which represents Rio Grande City along the southern border, is being redrawn to be extremely favorable toward Republicans, which likely solidified his move. Now, he was quoted in this next one as saying, "Friends, something is happening in South Texas, and many of us are waking up to the fact that the values of those in Washington, D.C. are not our values, not the values of most Texans," Gillen said, according to the Texas Tribune. Now, what this tells me is a number of things. First of all, redistricting just didn't go in his favor. So that's part of it.
Right.
So,
a little opportunistic.
That's a little opportunistic. Yeah. To be fair, he also is from the Rio Grande Valley, and the Rio Grande Valley is a very, very conservative, now becoming more and more conservative part of Texas right along the southern border. So you've got the area that is conservative. You've got a guy who reads the tea leaves and says, this is just not working for me. So they did an announcement with Governor Abbott, and Greg Abbott had this whole big announcement with this Representative Ryan Gillen, and they touted the fact that he has switched. Now, this is not the first time somebody has switched, but this is definitely really bad timing for the Democrats because things are piling on one after another. Now, add to that, there is also an article in The Intercept that just came out, and it says it's not just white people leaving the Democrat Party. So let's take a look at this article from The Intercept. Focus groups are put together differently than surveys, which weigh the responses to reflect the population at large. While 96 respondents isn't enough for a robust polling sample, it's a chance to dig deeper into the views of a slice of the electorate. Virginia is about 2/3 white, and this sample was 79% white, so slightly whiter than the state at large, but not by a ton. 11% of them were black women, 6% Latina, and 4% Asian American, and they came from around the state. Now, this article, just to back up a little bit, a Democratic firm, what they did, hosted a focus group, and several focus groups actually, with women in Virginia who voted in 2017 for Democratic Governor Ralph Northam, who voted in 2020 for Democratic President Joe Biden, and then this month for Republican Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin. So they wanted to see what was going on with women who voted for Democrat, and then all of a sudden switched to Youngkin. It was centered on suburban women, a group that pivoted significantly to the right in the governor's election. And the consultant's name is Danny Barefoot. And Danny Barefoot said that Anvil Strategies called roughly 30,000 people in Virginia. So they had a really hard time getting people if they ended up with 96.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. But what they were looking for, a really specific group of people just to get the bead on what they were thinking. Now, most, they said, of that 30,000 didn't answer, but several hundred of them fit that criteria that he was looking for, people who voted Democrat, Republican in the last 3 elections. That's what they were looking for here, too. Let's take a look at one more quote here. So what Barefoot found is that while the women agreed with Democrats with policy, they just didn't connect with them when asked which party had better policy proposals. The group members overwhelmingly said Democrats, but when asked which party had cultural values closer to theirs, they cited Republicans. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. Yep.
That watch and learn, Republican strategists. This is very important information here. The biggest disconnect came, of course, as we learned, on education. Barefoot found that school closures were likely a big part of their votes for Youngkin, and that frustration at school leadership over those closures bled into the controversy pushed by Republicans around the injection of critical race theory into the public school setting, along with the question of what say parents should have in schools. Now, as if this weren't enough for the very, very bad week, there is another article, and this third article comes from Newsweek. This article is titled Representative Jackie Speier, Latest Democrat to Announce Retirement from Congress. So we've got some problems here, people. California Representative Jackie Speier announced on Tuesday she will not seek re-election, becoming the latest House Democrat to announce retirement before the 2022 midterm election cycle. Speier is now the 14th House Democrat to announce retirement and not seek re-election in 2022. Most have given reasons beyond politics for retiring, of course they have, like the desire to spend more time with family or to allow someone else to serve, like because they're going to lose it to Republicans anyway. But the pile up of retirements is a foreboding sign for Democrats, underscoring the reality that party that wins the White House typically loses congressional seats in the following midterm elections. This happens every time. More members are expected to depart, even as they contend with the reality that they could find themselves in the minority. So between Democrats switching from Democrat to Republican, to regular garden variety voters deciding that Democrats' messaging is just not right to them, to Democrats jumping ship before, they say as the rats jump the ship.
Yep.
Democrats have been having a very, very bad week.
Yeah, this reminds me back in 2010, after Obama got in, and we started seeing the Conrad, Dorgan, Pomeroy. They, as their turns came up, they're like, yeah, we're out of here, rather than take the risk, the very high risk, based on what the politics were, of not getting back in.
And the only people in the way of the Republicans are the Republicans themselves at this point. So don't shoot yourself in the foot. That's the lesson to be learned, because the Democrats are jumping ship, and they should.